Jerry and Charlie riding through the airwaves, bringing you the heat. Come on, pull your fans. Now get up out your seat. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. They're bringing you all things Mets. Now you're listening to Chase Station.
Today is Friday, July 26th. The Mets are a half game back of the top wildcard spot in the National League. They swept the Subway Series. They took the first game against the Atlanta Braves, and their ace of last year returns to the mound tonight. It's been a while since it's been this good to be a Mets fan. Probably, a year and a half at this point. I'm one of your co-hosts, Jack, aka Jolly. Joining me after a very nice tenure on SNY Pre and Post is clean-shaven Jerry Blevins. Jerry, how you doing?
I'm really good. Thank you. It is exciting, very exciting, especially with Senga coming back. Gosh, I hope it hasn't been great for the return of midseason injury, except for Robbie Ray yesterday. So there's hope for that. But man, Senga, I'm excited that there's so much positivity around the Mets and fun. Beating an absolute dynamo in Chris Sale last night was great. The trade deadline's right around the corner. Just really fun times. And thank you. By the way, I shaved, I trimmed my beard like a no guard.
Sure.
At a terrible time. You look at me, I'm not like super tan. And then I wore a black suit. And then Todd Zeal's next to me on TV.
I thought you might have been like sick or something. You looked a little pale. But
That's what everybody thought. It was just a bad. It was the lighting is so bright.
Yeah.
I would have looked fine if it was just me and Gary, but then Todd comes in this bronze color, and then I look like a sickly human. It was my mistake. So. Yeah,
I make the thumbnails for all our Shea Station episodes. I'm like, oh, I need like a new picture of Jerry. Let me pull the one from his SNY show, and I pulled it. I was like, nope. I think he's gonna get mad at me if we use this.
Hey, that's good looking out, my man. Thank you. I think he might be sick. That's it.
Yeah, so we talk about Senga coming back. I mean, the Mets just had the inverse of this experience when they faced Garrett Cole for the first time. It's good that you bring that up because it might not go swimmingly for Senga the first time out. He's going to need some time to get his feet wet. The Mets bludgeoned Garrett Cole both times they faced him. That second game in the Subway Series, 5 home runs on his head, including 2 from Francisco Lindor in that game, who's already got a 2020 season and has fully activated his MVP case in the second half. It's been a joy to watch. 10 for 30, 5 home runs, 10 RBIs since coming back from the break. He looks, I think, the best that we've seen him in his 4 years.
I don't think it's even close.
I don't think it's close.
We've seen a very good version of Francisco Lindor. He is 100% an MVP candidate. I mean, he plays a premium position. He plays it very, very well. And he is dominating on offense. That last night, gosh, which one was it? Iglesias.
Yeah.
Dude, he just missed like 3 pitches. And, as a former player, I look for like mental aspects of like how they're feeling. His confidence, he was so... He kept looking out like, dude, does Iglesias realize how lucky he got? Because like I should have taken him deep and walked it off in the 9th. He was like, he's just locked in right now, and it's an absolute pleasure to watch. Absolute MVP candidate. You got Shohei, you've got Lindor. Who else is in that top?
Ellie's in there for sure. I think
Ellie's in there. It's which is so cool for baseball in general and all my Reds fans that are around here in Ohio.
True, yeah.
But he's in the conversation, and for everything that Ellie does, like here, Lindor's like here.
Yeah.
Like stolen bases, like he's got 51 already. Ellie,
that's insane.
And he's doing amazing things. He's got 849 OPS. He's coming on, but Lindor is just the polished version of it on a team that's like on a push, which is still important, even though maybe it shouldn't be according to some voters. But he's doing it
Yeah, I
It's
mean,
great.
I still believe the MVP should play for a team that's succeeding, but there's
Unless it's
Shohei's
like,
like a different circumstance, like with the Angels, but
or in like, this fact that Shohei doesn't play a position bothers me.
well, it's gonna hurt
Um,
him, I think, in
it
voting.
it
That's
should hurt
why
him. It
there's a
should
real
hurt him.
chance. Yeah,
It should.
where it's gonna really help him pretty
So
much
if there's
every other year of
another
his career.
candidate that's like, there, the
Yeah.
fact that he doesn't play a position, uh, you know, we're getting off the rails a little bit here, but to me, Lindor is my favorite to win it right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's too off the rails. I think it's more real than some people are realizing. Our guy Steve Gelbs had a great tweet this morning. Since May 21st, which is the day that Lindor moved to the leadoff spot and pretty much his season really like kicked into gear, his wins above replacement according to Fangraphs is 4.3. Second in the National League is 2.8 at Ellie De La Cruz. Now, I know there's some not like, people that don't subscribe to WAR as like gospel. But when the difference is a win and a half in just, 2 months time, whatever the time frame is, that just shows you how much head and shoulders he's been better against any other position player in the league. And this past week, I think, has been the biggest showcase of his talents between the two-homer game, his continued elite defense, and just, I don't know, the way he's gone about it all. Like that at bat against the Glaciers, I was going to bring it up. I'm a little upset that you got there before me because it didn't result in anything. It was a ground out
No.
to second base, but 11 pitches. He took every ball that Iglesias threw, and then, Iglesias was dotting, the outside part of the plate, and he was just fouling it off, wasting it every time. And you could almost feel like something was going to happen there. I was almost really upset that it didn't happen there, but we got a really funny ending instead. But every at bat has become must
I'm
watch TV.
I'm gonna toot your horn a little bit for you. First of all, your analysis since we first started, you have matured into like the fact that you brought up that at bat too, and you wanted to talk about it. Unbelievable.
We grow.
You're killing it right
We
now.
grow. Come on.
Both nationally and when you fill in and do, full baseball stuff with Talking Baseball, which is the best baseball podcast outside of specific team and Shea
Besides
Station.
Shea Station.
Talking
Yeah, I was gonna
Baseball, you
say.
guys
Okay.
get on
Thanks.
it. Get on it if you don't listen.
Yeah.
It's wonderful. But your Twitter game is on another level. Your
Always
LOL
keep your
Braves.
receipts. Always
Your
keep your
LOL.
receipts.
What's your? Have you looked at that tweet at all today?
I haven't. I haven't checked
I'm
back in
gonna
on
look
it.
at it for you. I'm gonna look at it because
It's doing all right.
it's and I legitimately was like, I don't think I'm gonna retweet this. I got a lot of that's not fair, you guys. Like
You're
a
a
lot
better
of
man than I am. You're a better
a
man
lot
than
of
I am.
Braves followers, being a former Brave, they're like, dude,
Mm.
not fair. Don't do that to us.
I got a
Um,
text from Peter Moylan because I was so the Braves are on the verge of blowing a 10-game lead. Back in 2022, we had to hear endlessly about how the Mets blew a 10.5 game lead in I think 3 months. The Braves did it in 1 month's time. So I've been posting about it because it brings me a lot of joy. And Peter replied that it's not the same. And there's some
say that again.
Peter Moylan replied that it's not the same because
Yeah.
of the Braves' injuries and all that. And I see what he's saying. But at the end of the day, a 10-game lead is a 10-game lead, and the Braves had one. So here we are.
Yeah. It isn't the same. He's right. They
But
have they've
what but
had
what fun is that? Come
I
on.
know exactly. But it's at 3,000 likes, which is beautiful.
People seem to enjoy it. That's nice.
Yeah.
There's a lot to
Um,
enjoy right now in Mets world. Not just Francisco Lindor. This team is playing fantastically.
can I say that I was nervous having been in camp with Ramon Laureano and with Oakland
Mm.
when he ran into Francisco Alvarez and Alvarez kind of stood
Oh
up for
yeah.
himself. Laureano is an insane person and
He's
like
fought the entire Astros team by himself once.
stupid strong too,
Yeah.
and a bit crazy.
Yeah.
And Alvarez is a very important part, but he's also like very strong and should stand up for himself. But I was like, please, not that guy.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't fight, please, because like he'll get bit or something.
And like he threw
Uh,
up his hand pretty much immediately, like
he
my
did the right
bad.
thing. Like
Yeah.
that was for him to go to lose the game for the Braves, both in the top of the 10th and the bottom of the
It's
10th
tough.
was LOL
It's
Braves.
tough. It's really, I mean, they said after the game that they'd Snit said he doesn't know what happened, so there was no squeeze call made. Laureano apparently said there was, but even if, like, baseball IQ, why would
Yeah,
you run a suicide squeeze there? Like, even in the first place,
correct.
you're playing for multiple runs if you're the road team in extra innings, first of all, which they weren't, which shocked me. And then, I don't know, like, Kelnick has been one of their better hitters. The fact that that call he even thought was on is absurd to me. So we'll take it, but that was
There,
crazy.
there's a left foul pole line view where they're look like you can see Laureano, the
Mhm.
catcher, and like you see Kelenic pull back and then just go like, oh,
Yeah,
I'm like, that's
it's
hilarious because
tough.
that
I'm
was
with
that was
Kelnick though, because it's not a buntable pitch, and like I don't think that call was made. So it's
no, it
tough,
was I think he
man.
was going safety squeeze trying to get that run in. It
Yeah,
was a
I
big
think so
run.
too. And
So
like it's just weird seeing this version of the Braves because like they're gonna get Harris back soon, and they're gonna probably add some people at the deadline. So this probably isn't the best version of the Braves we'll see for the rest of the season. Watching that team last night was not the team that I've seen the past 2 years in terms of baseball IQ, in terms of, power hitting and all that.
mhm.
They seem like a shell of themselves right now. It's very bizarre to see, but I'm sure the Mets are happy about it because, we said this a lot, but the Mets did a lot of losing in May. They can't really afford to drop any more big series, and they've been living up to the bill, man. They took all four from the Yankees. They're up on the Braves on the season right now. It's a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, a lot of good stuff.
We have to talk about Jeff McNeil.
I mean, of course.
We have to talk about Jeff McNeil. Jerry, we were very close to a really upsetting 10th inning last night. I think that the win has got everyone feeling good, the funny ending, but JD Martinez has been nice cold. He had a pretty rough at bat there. Vientos got fooled bad on a curveball. It was two outs, runner on second, and we were on the verge of going to the 11th, and I don't like the Mets in extra innings pretty much ever. That's the only time I don't like this team. And McNeil comes through once again, a guy that was not
Ish.
ousted because he was always going to play ish, but put the ball in play, whatever. Good
Yeah,
things happen.
absolutely.
He's now hitting over 400 since coming back from the All-Star break. 4 home runs, an OPS above 1400, 3 straight multiple hit games for the first time since 2022. Are you buying it? Is Jeff back, or are we just having a nice week?
I don't know. It
Okay,
feels like it feels like he's back
a little bit.
because his approach has changed things for him because he's always been able to put the bat to the ball. But I said it on the pre and post game. He's kind of doing Stephen Kwan light here
Yeah, a little bit.
because Stephen Kwan, the bat to ball guy that he is, he doesn't strike out. He's like a Jeff McNeil, like a Luis Ariz. The Guardians told him, and brilliant on the Guardians' part. They were like, "Look, Steven, we like what you do, but we need some more swing and miss in your game because if it gets to
Mm,
2 strikes, then you can take your approach. We want you to swing harder and swing and miss on purpose sometimes, like try to crush the ball." And it's completely changed his entire approach.
yeah,
Um, and I think this is what Jeff McNeil is doing. And I'm not sure if they borrowed that from him, but Stephen Kwan has got an 891 OPS. This guy has 10 homers. He's hitting 341. Um, he's doing it on a
yeah,
level that this could be Jeff McNeil. I know Jeff's older, um, but the way the shift, like the anti-shift now, he made a change and it's working. He's not a home run guy ever. I don't want him to try to be that. But the version that we saw that can hit 15 to 20, I think he hit 23.
and yeah, I think 2019.
2019 he hit 23 and then he tried to hit homers. Now he's just trying to hit the ball hard. He's not worrying about getting it in the air. He's not worrying about he just wants to hit the ball hard. When they're spaced out evenly and you hit the ball hard, your chances of getting on base are greater. He's not going to be a multi home run all the time guy, but he's going to pop some and he's going to hit doubles. This is the version that I like. I still would love to see him go the other way a little bit more to kind of balance that out. But when you're riding a power heater like he is, I like what I'm seeing. I don't know that it's locked in. I was out on Jeff McNeil. I thought it was
Yeah,
over
yeah,
because I
and
didn't see. I didn't see him. I didn't see him capable of making the adjustment that they're talking about now out of stubbornness and out of understanding that this guy won a batting title. Um, but to switch your philosophy, I give him all the credit in the world for sticking to it. I think he's back to it's a different version of back though. So I think this is a new Jeff McNeil. Um, I think it's sustainable for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely different, which is I think a little bit jarring because watching Jeff pop 4 home runs in 5 games is like, whoa. I mean, I don't think he's ever done that.
So
Um,
yeah,
go
sorry to
ahead.
interrupt. Go ahead.
It's just he's 2 home runs away from the second most he's ever had in the season. Pretty much all of a sudden. Like, I mean, this happened, in a week span, and I think it's hard to make changes mid-season. Like usually these guys are making substantial changes in the offseason where you have 3 months to work out the mechanics and the kinks of your swing. So I don't know. I'm kind of where you're at. I'm a little tepid because I watched 3 months of this guy struggle and flounder every day in the lineup. And now all of a sudden it's flipped on its head. I'm hoping it's not just a hot week because right now he's got the highest OPS in the National League of anyone since the All-Star break, which is pretty substantial. A lot of great hitters in this league. Um, but I don't know. I just don't know. I'm enjoying the ride while it's here, and he's finally hitting into some good luck too, which I feel like
Right.
when you're going good, things fall. I'm interested to see how it kicks out a week from now, though.
So here's the thing. He made this change before the end of the All-Star break.
Yeah.
So I can't remember the date, but we've been running it on pre and post. He has since he made the adjustment, I think it's like 3 weeks. So like 2 weeks leading up to the All-Star break and then this week, he has the hardest hit rate on the team.
Oh, let's see in the league. Actually, I could find that for
Yeah.
you.
So since whatever date that was, he has the hardest hit rate, including Nimmo, Lindor, Vientos.
Mm,
He's at the top. But his slugging percentage was down because he was hitting it right at people.
yeah.
So we saw him make the adjustment and not get the results and
Mm,
stick to it coming out of the All-Star break, and it's starting to pay off. Now, here's where I get apprehensive. The league
okay.
pitching will adjust to his new approach.
Yes.
So they'll be more careful with how they approach him. If he's swinging hard, they'll start to make him chase and not stay in the zone because he was an out. So you
Yeah.
would fill the zone, let him hit it to somebody soft, and then he'll get out. Well, they're still pitching him like that. Now they're going to pitch him like his approach is now. So there is going to be an adjustment period. So if he can find that balance of plate discipline and picking his spots a little bit better. So this is a game of adjustments, obviously.
Hmm.
Can he make the adjustment because he's not going to get the same pitches to hit on a regular basis than he's been. But again, I think his skill set is matched. So if he can stay disciplined a little bit better, especially when he gets down in the count, to not swing at those pitches that are like back foot sliders, curveballs, back foot, the fastballs way in off. I think I think he'll be fine.
I think so too. Interesting find. You were definitely right. His hard hit percentage is up. Like Jeff McNeil this month, July, 10th in MLB with a 46.8% hard hit percentage, up there with guys like Devers, Riley, Jordan, Schwarber. Like that's the company he's keeping right now, which good on Jeff, because I really didn't think that was like capable to be part of his game. The thing is, his out of zone swing percentage, it's about league average right now. So I do agree. If they are able to adjust on him, it's going to be another, he's going to have to adjust right back and continue to evolve. But this development has just been so big for the lineup because, Martinez has struggled recently. Vientos has cooled off a little bit. The guys are still bopping, but when you have Jeff at the bottom of the lineup, able to reset everything like he did so much in 2022, it just multiplies the run scoring opportunities, especially when he's hitting for power too. Like he got the big hit in the first Subway Series game. He got the walk-off hit last night. Like these are clutch moments that Jeff McNeil is having. And I don't know, man. Like I don't think they were ever going to be able to trade him. I just don't think that contract was ever going to be movable. But now you're in a scenario where that's not something the Mets have to worry about, which is a
Correct.
huge plus.
That's it. I was like, hey, he's so valuable defensively. and his skill set off the bench or replacing a guy, like I thought he was a bench guy.
Yeah,
Now I think he can play some right field. Like, with Marte, not everybody's sure what he can do or if he'll be back, when he'll be
right.
back. Um, they were looking at an outfielder to play every day because DJ Stewart, I love him. I love what he did last year. He's an easy guy to root for, but I don't think he's the answer.
Yeah,
Um, then you have Tyrone Taylor and Jeff McNeil as a plug and play. And I figured they would go get a right fielder. I don't think they have to now.
yeah. I mean,
So
McNeil, he's always given you the versatility, and now you have Iglesias who's continued to play well, and you can play them both every day, and that's a huge luxury for the Mets. Um, so it's just I don't know. I'm so like confused by it because I really thought his struggles were kind of set in stone. Like this is who he is. It's going to be hard to ever come back from it, and now he's hitting 500 in the past week.
good for him, man. That's the thing for me. Good for him because
Yeah,
he
happy
he made
Jeff.
he made the adjustment. The guy that you thought maybe would never make that adjustment, bullheaded, understandably decides that, hey, I can do this. And so,
Yep.
yeah, so good for him.
Good for him. Good for the Mets. You talked a little bit about trades and possible additions. We're going to get to that in the second half of the show. I do want to shout out, surprisingly, I'm so happy to be saying this, the Mets bullpen. They have been great the past week. It has been very refreshing. They have a 1.98 ERA in the past week. Jose Butto stole the show last night with three perfect innings. But outside of him, Phil Maton with four scoreless appearances.
Love it.
They've been getting it done because the starting rotation, I think we're going on 6 straight days where no one's gotten it out in the sixth inning. So it hasn't exactly been an easy hand that's been dealt to them. And they've finally stepped up. And I think without this bullpen performance the past week, the Mets are looking at, a couple more losses and maybe not the momentum that they're feeling right now. So it's a very welcome sight.
Yep. I think Maton is a weapon. The way he's capable of spinning the ball, that cutter that rises up,
Mm,
and then that curveball off of it, that is deadly to righties and lefties. So he's like that, second lefty to Diekman. Um, I feel like Diekman's back.
we got
I
to talk about,
truly,
yeah.
I truly do. His stuff looked good. He had that zip on his fastball. Whatever was
Yeah.
ailing him at the end of the first half, they gave him so much rest that I think he's back. And he's got the cojones to, we saw in the Yankees series, that huge strikeout
I was in the
of Aaron
seats.
Judge. Like he's capable of doing that. And that's the guy that they trade, or that's the guy that they signed.
Yeah.
Um, Alex Young looked really good. Danny Young is still developing for me. I don't think he's an answer for this season. But Alex Young has looked really good in his two appearances.
Yeah.
Very capable, throw strikes. I like what I've seen from him. But yeah, Phil Maton is a great addition. I still think they need at least one arm. I would love to see a big arm to lock down that eighth inning, so
Hmm.
Nunez could pitch seven, and then Jose Butto, who is your guy, and we've loved him since last year, maybe even a little bit
Since the
before.
beginning, Jerry. Since the beginning.
Yeah, man, he's been. If he can still be that multi-inning guy, so when you have a starter go five, so
Hmm.
here's the beauty of it. So in that Yankees series,
Yeah.
you saw Jose Quintana pitch. To me, he only went 5 innings. That was the best version of Jose Quintana I've ever seen. He did exactly what he wanted to do. He pitched really smart.
Yeah.
He knew he only had to go five to get through this lineup. He pitched to Soto and got Soto out left on left. He walked Aaron Judge, the best hitter on the planet, on
I had
purpose,
no
which you
problem with it.
should.
No problem
Yeah.
with it.
And that set up Budo, Nunez, and Diaz, who are the 7, 8, 9 right now.
Yeah.
That's the three guys. But if you get a fill-in that can be a lockdown eighth inning guy, that pushes Nunez back to the seventh inning guy, then Budo can be that Swiss Army knife that can give you 6 and 7 on a regular basis, uh, to get to Nunez, to get to whoever they get to Diaz. So there's talk of Butto maybe like continuing to lengthen out to possibly be a starter, but I wouldn't mess with him right now. He's too valuable. He is such a weapon. He's got confidence in an early career that he's been in the big leagues. This kind of confidence building will carry over to next season when he gets stretched back out. So
Yeah.
for me, he is a bullpen guy for the rest of this season. I think this is where he's going to be for the foreseeable future.
Budo has changed the dynamic of the bullpen. I had some people replying to me saying like, "Oh, we got to get him back in the rotation. It's going to be Seth Lugo all over again." I totally understand that. For what the Mets need right now, Jose Budo deserves to be in the bullpen. I think a more accurate comparison and a good vote of confidence to keep him there is looking at the 2023 Mets bullpen that blew so many games in May and basically set in stone that the Mets are going to be sellers early in the season, or in June, excuse me. That bullpen didn't have one member in it that was so important the year before that I don't think anyone talks about enough anymore. That bullpen didn't have Trevor Williams, who was
Yeah.
the swingman who would give you multiple innings, who closed games, who started games, and was good in every role that he filled for the Mets. That is who Jose Butto reminds me of right now. He has started and succeeded. He's been the bulk guy and succeeded. He's closed and he's succeeded. He's capable of all three. And having that versatile option, I think the Mets would do themselves a disservice right now to limit him only to a starting role. Now, with that being said, I don't think you can go throughout the rest of the season with Tyler McGill getting a start every fifth day. They're going to do it this Saturday, I think, out of necessity because Christian Scott has gone down. But a pitcher has to be on the radar for the Mets at the trade deadline. We'll talk about realistic options going forward. But the 7-8-9 of Budo, Nunez, and Diaz is working, and it's not a formula you need to mess with right now. It's a formula you can add to, and it gets a lot easier when guys like Maton and Alex Young step up and contribute, thanks to David Stearns just kind of finding guys in the market. But right now, people who are clamoring for Budo to get stretched out, I think just if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It's an old adage, but I think it's very accurate here. The Mets bullpen was the Achilles heel for this team for the entire first half. If there's a system where it works now, just stick to it because you know these guys are going to keep hitting.
Yeah, I think that's the smart move. I like the Trevor Williams comparison on what he's been able to do. I still think the Seth Lugo comp
It's
just
there.
on just on his ability in the bullpen is more accurate because he's got way more swing and miss than Trevor Williams did.
Yeah.
And to me, that's the key. I would have never felt, regardless of how good Trevor Williams was that season, and he was great. Budo's got more swing and miss, which is the key to being successful in the bullpen on a regular basis. You've got to
Yeah.
be able to make a guy swing and miss. His move to the rotation will be an off-season move, I believe. So
Yeah.
again, he's been one of several MVP candidates for this team. A key cog in why they're competitive on a regular basis.
And it helps with the question of the rotation for next year. I know we're looking ahead a little bit, but this is a Mets team that I think when they go out this deadline, they're going to be looking for a lot of guys that aren't going to be free agents at the end of the year. They want to see who's going to be a part of the team going forward. And Budo, I think, has staked his claim that he's one, not going to be in AAA anytime soon again, and two, can feasibly fit into two different roles. I'm hoping the Mets just pick one and leave him there, unlike what they did with Lugo early in his career. But Jose Butto, last night, I think he was the MVP of last night's game. Three perfect innings out of the bullpen, saved the bullpen completely, and made it look easy.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, he was definitely the star of the show last night. Without him, they don't get to any of those positions. I know the Braves lineup isn't clicking like where
Which is
they have
weird.
been now, but
So
it
weird.
doesn't matter. Yeah,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter because Budo um, just has been dominant. His whiff percentage is the 91st percentile in baseball.
That's pretty nice.
That is a level that like you that's what you need out of the bullpen. And again, Budo, his ultimate value for this team is as a starter, but this is where they need him right now, and then they can address that in the offseason. Or
Yeah.
the, yeah.
ERA below 1 as a reliever, 0.66. Striking out 35% of batters. Opponents are 3 for 40 with 17 strikeouts against Butto in the pen. That's where he's staying. I
That's
mean, that's
beautiful.
that's how it's got to be. Um, is there anybody else you'd like to hone in on before we get to kind of like the second half of the show?
I want to speak a little like not negativity, but JD Martinez is struggle city right now. He's
It's an
getting his
elephant in the
hits.
room.
He's getting his hits, but he's not driving the ball. He's not producing runs right now. Um, so that's something to watch. And then Nemo's kind of off for
Yeah.
now. He'll come back, but this is the beauty of this lineup, the depth that they have, that they don't. This is how a team sustains success. When a guy is hot, he helps win. And then when he gets cold, somebody else steps up and gets hot, and they're able to fill those gaps of driving in runs. But those are the two guys right now that need to turn it on. And then I still feel like we haven't seen the polar bear take off. We haven't seen Pete
Yeah.
Alonso carry this team for any bit of this season. I still think it's in there. I still like if he gets hot, look out rest of the league because if he gets hot at the right time, because we're pushing,
Yeah.
we're almost into August and we haven't seen the best of him. We haven't seen a stretch that we've seen every single year of his, 5+ years of success as a Met. Um, it's time and it's right around the corner. I'm so excited to see it. I hope he stays where he's at because he's still doing okay, but he hasn't filled in. So I'm waiting because the other guys we might see Jeff McNeil cool off or Lindor
Hmm.
take a little stumble, and then if Pete Alonso steps in, that's how you can help sustain this. And so yeah, I think our lineup is great. Iglesias, he might cool down being 34. But yeah, the I'm waiting for the polar bear to wake up from his hibernation.
I like that. Wake up from the hibernation. Yeah, JD hasn't had a home run since July 1st. It's been 70 plate appearances, 3 extra base hits in that span. So he is getting his hits, especially this past week. He's been getting his singles, but they need more from him out of the three hole. I love the day off for Nemo yesterday. Don't make him face Chris Sale when he's been in
Gosh.
such a bad way. Just give him a day. He needs a day. Um, I'm very grateful for it. We're in the third straight season where Nemo's going to break 100 games. Back in 2021, he had only done that once in his career. Still protect him like you're protecting a guy like Bader who rolled his ankle. But yeah, Pete was the guy I was going to bring up. I mean, last month, let me ask you this. In June, which is when the Mets kicked into gear and everyone started to go, did that feel like Pete Alonso's best month to you?
It did not.
He had a 900 OPS that he had an 898 OPS. And
That's
like
wild.
it's,
Yeah.
he walked 16 times to 25 strikeouts. That definitely helps. Hit 5 home runs. It didn't feel like Pete carried the team. It kind of felt like everyone played their role and like other guys were having those clutch moments. We haven't seen Pete carry the team, and we know what that looks like because we've been watching the Mets pretty much every day since 2021. When he takes over, he's a guy that pitchers have to pitch around and are scared of because he can change the game at any moment. And I agree with you. I still really feel like we have not seen that. He got a big home run in the Subway Series against Garrett Cole. I think that gets overshadowed because everyone hit a home run in that game, but that at that moment it was a big hit. Um, it's just been a lack of signature moments for him this season, which I think, we hold Pete to a different standard, which I think is fair. He's earned that. Um, but Francisco Lindor has completely overshadowed him this year. And I would love to think that Lindor will continue to play at this level for the rest of the season. I think he's capable of that. But the Mets have to prep for a scenario where that's not going to be the case, like where he might return back down to earth, along with guys like Iggy and along with guys like Vientos, who Vientos has already shown a little bit of struggles the second half so far. They need Pete to go. And I'm hoping August is the month where something clicks because this is a great version of Pete Alonso, 20 home runs, a 123 OPS plus, but there is another gear in there, and we've seen it before. And that's when the Mets get genuinely scary, is when they can add that version of Pete to this lineup on top of everything else.
Yep. So I'm looking for Pete, for JD, and for Alvarez to
Yeah.
kind of climb back out and start producing homers. I think that thumb injury for Alvarez zapped some of that power.
Yeah.
That's a big deal when you're hitting. But regardless of that, he's been incredible, especially behind the plate. What he's done with his pitching staff. Yeah, man, this is a fun team offensively that I didn't see coming. I honestly didn't see this happening to the level that it is. I knew this team could be competitive. We talked about it.
Yeah.
We knew that they were playoff contention because of the talent on the roster if they could gel, and they've gelled. This team is the team chemistry. It's got to be the best in the league. Like,
I mean,
the Orioles
vibes,
are,
they win. Yeah.
yeah, the Orioles have been there all season. They're young and believe in themselves, but I think as far as like a team feel goes, I think the Mets are the best in the league.
As a team, they're second best in OPS plus. They're third, or excuse me, second in slugging and third in runs. I mean, that's
It's
just
beautiful.
a dream offense. One of the better lineups I've seen as a Mets fan, and I hope they keep it up because this can be the story of how this team succeeds and gets into the playoffs. So before we go to a little trade deadline wish list, we have Senga coming back tonight, McGill on Saturday, Peterson on Sunday. The Mets will see Reynaldo Lopez again on Sunday. That's the game I'm going to. So fingers crossed that they can break his hot stretch. But I'm feeling really good about this Braves series. They got the Twins coming up after that. And that'll take us to the trade deadline, Jerry, which is going to be next Tuesday. The Mets are one of the few teams that have made a move. They got Phil Maton. It's worked out so far. I think they know that another move needs to happen. And I outlined three different areas where I think it could land. The three that I think make the most sense: corner outfield, starting pitching, relief pitching. And I got a lot of names here. I don't know if you've taken a look. I have a few that I kind of picked out as guys that I think would make sense. Let me just ask you this from the get-go. Do you think the Mets make another trade before Tuesday?
Absolutely. I
Okay.
truly do. I think at bare minimum, they get one more reliever.
Yeah.
Um, I don't think they need the corner outfield anymore as far as an everyday guy. I do think they need to upgrade a left-handed bat bench. Like they need to move on from DJ Stewart. He's
I think it's
done
time.
he's
Yeah.
done well. But I think it's time to move on. So I can see them going for a Jesse Winker type guy, like a lefty bat off the bench. I think Winker fits the Mets
Mm,
so well. He's a rental player, so they can keep their outfield prospects in the wings, next man up kind of thing. But he feels like a Met in a weird way. He loves the Mets fans. He's had a good time in New York, and the Mets need a left-handed, weapon that they can come in and put together a good at bat. And he's doing great right now. So I think
yeah.
that's kind of a target. Starting pitching, I think, is a sneaky need
Yeah.
because I like Tyler McGill, but I want somebody that you can count on a little bit more. Um, so I think you pick some interesting targets there. My dream scenario, this is so weird. Right before this, even one game against the Braves, we were talking, minimal trade, maybe, deal from a position of depth to get a
Yeah.
bullpen arm. Now I'm like, do they go big at the trade deadline? Do they go after a Garrett Crochet for a multiple
Mm,
year thing? Because he fits now. He
hmm.
fits. It'll take a lot, and they'll have to give up things that they don't want to give up. But if Crochet comes in and you have a 1-2 punch of Senga and Crochet, and then Severino right there, like 1, 2, 3.
That's a tough matchup for any wild card team.
Plus, if Senga has some early struggles, which are very likely because he hasn't faced hitting, yet this season,
Yeah.
you have that fail-safe of a guy that can do it. Crochet talked about wanting an extension before
Yeah.
really pitching in
He
the
wouldn't pitch
playoffs.
in the playoffs. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting. And it's smart on his half because this is his first season being a starter. He's way over whatever he's done in the past. For his safety, his security, wanting an extension is smart and the right move for him.
Hmm.
But the Mets are in, You've got Verlander and Scherzer coming off the books. Those are the big ones holding the team back. If you can give him a portion of those two contracts,
Hmm.
man, that would be awesome. But they do need one more starter. If they don't go for a guy like that, going for a like a Tyler Anderson
Mm.
or a Kikuchi, even Cal Quantrill can give them
He's
a
had a nice
reliable
season. Yeah.
starter for that six-man rotation that they need to keep those guys healthy.
Yeah. So they're definitely, they already said they're keeping the six-man rotation. So I
Yeah.
agree with you. I think like not even sneaky at this point. I think the Mets know like we need another guy that can give us 6 innings every fifth day. When I said before, I think they're going to look for guys with more control. I definitely meant more the pitching staff because
Yeah.
the Mets could add a bat. Like I'm not saying that they need one, that they need to break their back to, get somebody. But someone like Jesse Winker, who's only getting paid 1.5 million this year, which good on the Nationals front office because galore on their roster. They have 1 year deals that have just worked out. They're now 9 games under 500. They just got no hit by Dylan Cease. I think they're confirmed sellers. That's a team you can look at as someone you can pillage. And like realistically, on the names I lined up for corner outfield, Winker's the one that makes the most sense. He's left-handed, he's a power bat, he steals bases, and his defense has been manageable. So that's someone you can feasibly put out there. The other names like Kevin Pillar, Mark Canha, Michael Conforto might tug at your heartstrings. They don't make as much sense for the Mets right now, but I wouldn't necessarily be upset with them in terms of, Conforto's getting paid $18 million this year. I'm not sure the Mets want to add that to their payroll. With starting pitching, it's such a tightrope because a lot of these teams that I listed guys for are still like kind of in it. Like I think the Blue Jays are out, so you can talk about guys like Bassett and Kikuchi. The Rockies are out. You can talk about someone like Cal Quantrill. But like the Rangers are still kind of tiptoed in, and they have a really nice rotation, so you can't really bark up that tree. What's funny is that the in the offseason, one of the first names that the Mets were attached to in free agency was Eric Fetty. And they ended up not wanting to do $10 million. He went to the White Sox. That, I think, is the best pitcher available in terms of bang for your buck and contract management. He's only going to get paid $7.5 million next year, and he's been one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's thrown 117 innings with a 2.98 ERA for a White Sox team that has had literally nothing go right for it. That I think is the guy at the top of my wish list. I almost wish the Mets just paid him because then they wouldn't have to worry about, dealing something away. But it's tough because I really do think that starting pitching, the market is going to be so competitive. Like Garrett Crochet is obviously a dream, but when you have teams like the Orioles and the Dodgers who have just these incredibly deep farm systems that they don't not to say that they don't care about, but they don't care about dealing away from. They're expendable pieces at this point. It comes down to not just the Mets having the most money. It comes down to, okay, what are you willing to part with in this farm system that you're trying to rebuild? With that being said, the viewpoint on this team has changed. It's not just the grimace Mets anymore. It's not just a fun hot streak in June. This team's a powerhouse. They're beating really good teams routinely. They're mashing the cover off the ball. Their starting pitching has done enough to survive to this point, but I think everyone in the front office realizes if we can get someone legitimate frontline to pair with Senga, if he is also the guy he was last year, this team turns into a legitimate threat to make a serious deep run in the playoffs, not just a fun wild card story. So David Stearns, his first year in charge of Mets decisions on their roster is pretty important, man, because what do? Do you not necessarily spit in the face of Mets fans? I think that's a little dramatic, but do you kind of brush aside this nice stretch that they've been on and say, well, our focus is still 2 years from now? Or do you say, no, this roster I've built is good enough to compete for a World Series and I want to supplement them with as much talent as possible? It's tough. I don't know.
It's tough. It really is because this is magical, but he's looking long term.
Yeah.
So, you have a bunch of guys coming off the books. They got all these rental players to trade if the team didn't, there was before the All-Star break, I really thought Severino was a possible move.
It made a ton of sense.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. Nope.
You can't let that guy go. JD Martinez, not so much. I thought he was going to stick around, But then you got contributions like Iglesias, who he'll get a major league job next year, but I'm not sure it'll be with the Mets.
Well, I hope it is.
Um, yeah, so I don't know how much they leverage their future for this season because
Yeah.
that's kind of been their approach is like this is all about sustainable future. Um, so I'm not sure where they go because but it is exciting. I still think the next few games right up to the deadline are going to play a major
Oh,
role.
yeah. I think the
So I
players
think
know
they're
that
putting
too.
together packages for teams. And they say, all right, if we go on, we continue to win, I'm willing to move these big names, like these
Yeah.
big guys to get someone big. If not, will be a smaller package for another team. So I think it's going to come down to the wire, unless some of these teams like the Dodgers and Orioles pull the trigger quicker,
Yeah.
which they should, by the way. They should
Yeah.
snag these names before the Mets can, say, all right, now I'm ready.
And
So it'll be interesting,
like the floodgates kind of opened last night. We had AJ Puck go to the Snakes, and we
which I
had
wanted for the Mets so bad.
since becoming a reliever again, he's been fantastic. I think
Yeah, he's
his
been lights
overall
out.
numbers don't tell that story, but he
Correct.
was one of the better relievers on the market.
Yeah, he was right up there, right behind Tanner Scott from the left
Yeah,
side, but more, I mean, nasty. So
nastier. Yeah. Um, and then Rainier Rosarena went to the Mariners, which is the first real blockbuster since
yeah,
Luis Arias. Not saying that everyone's top 30 is the same because that would be naive, but it took the Mariners number 12 and number 22 prospect to get Rainier Rosarena until 2027. Like that is a guy that is now part of their roster for a while, plus a player to be named later, which the Rays have a really good history of negotiating. With that being said, if that's the price tag for someone with 2.5 years of control that has been an MVP candidate before, that opens the door to a lot of possibilities for the
yeah,
Mets because you don't want to find yourself in a scenario like 2022 where you have this great season, but so many guys are coming off the books. Like you have to find a way to bring back Nimmo and Diaz and DeGrom's leaving. And what do you do with adding to the rotation? That's how you sign guys like Verlander and Senga. The Mets want to worry about that less, I think. So anyone from the list of Jameson Tyone, Chris Bassett, Zach Eflin, Tyler Anderson, Eric Fetty, those are got to be guys that you think about because it helps you so much with your roster management for next year that I think the money concern kind of goes out the window. But with the prospect capital, who gets protected? Like Luis Angel Acuna has had a really tough year at AAA. His value's down. Is he's someone you look at as expendable with shortstop locked up and all that. Like Ronnie Mauricio hasn't played a lot this year. We don't really know what he is still. Is he someone that's expendable? I don't know how far the Mets go in that regard. And if that's the case, can they still compete with these powerhouse teams and fulfill this fan wish list? I don't know. So I think the realistically, the biggest thing they're going to do is add a couple bullpen arms. And I think if they do that and that alone, that's fine because there's a lot of guys out there. But I'm still going to think about what could be because, it's
yeah,
still 5 days away.
yeah. It's interesting. I think, I think Mauricio is the wild card that helps
Yeah.
because regardless of if they deal a Acuna, you have Mauricio for next year, and I
Yeah.
still think Mauricio is legit. Um, so that'll be interesting. Yeah, man. Where do we go? This is exciting. This is why you hire David Stearns to make
Yeah.
these decisions. This is why they waited patiently for him to come to the Mets. He's done incredible so far. I was talking to Danny Wexelman, who's like a trade or a draft guru.
Right.
She's known these players since they were 14. Is like she said the Mets draft was excellent. Um,
Yes.
I, I trust what she said because she's been, like I said, she's been in there. She knows every 14-year-old, 15, through perfect game. Um, it seems like they're on the right track. Uh, so where do they go from here? I think this next, leading up to Tuesday, I think the win-loss record really matters, how they're
Hmm.
playing. Because if it goes well, they're going to get a starter and a bullpen arm. We talked about all the scenarios and they're going to play themselves out. This is an exciting deadline, one that I think will be a lot of fun for Mets fans.
I hope it is too. I mean, say you take two of the next three against the Braves and you win one against the Twins. That makes you 3-1. That takes your record, I think, 8 games over 500. At that point, that's a legitimate winning team. That's a team that you can invest in. And I think it's all about the margins. Like these next 4 days, I think the team knows that's very important to basically convince the front office of like, we're legit. We can beat teams in our division that have toppled us before. It's just it's so stress inducing because like, you're in this cool scenario where like, okay, so we took Max Scherzer, we paid him down, and we got Luis Angel Acuna. What can you turn that into? What can you turn that into Garrett Crochet and say we turned Max Scherzer into Garrett Crochet? I don't know. I don't know. It's so hard to say what the market is, and it's not naive to say that like teams probably treat the Mets differently than other teams knowing their payroll and all that. And David Stearns has had kind of a rich history with like finding really good pieces at the deadline. Like he brought Mike Moustakas to the Brewers, and he was a great piece for them for 2 years on their pennant runs. That's something he's capable of doing. And I get antsy. Like if it ends up being Carlos Estevez and Kirby Yates, I mean that bullpen becomes one of the best in baseball, and the Mets are not hurt that much on payroll and probably not in their prospect capital either. That's something they can do. So I got my fingers crossed. Who's like
Yeah.
the number one guy that you think you want?
So
I
for me,
guess.
it's Kirby Yates.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't because he's so dominant. He's both lefties and righties are hitting under 200. Isn't that ridiculous? It's that
Yeah.
splitter, man. It's filthy. It's a weapon to both sides, and he throws it a ton. I don't know that the Rangers are out though. That's the
Yeah, they're kind
thing.
of back in it a little bit.
Yep. The Rangers are a game under 500.
That happened
Um,
so fast.
it sure did. They're right around, so they're 4 games out of a wild card spot
Oh, they
with,
4 games swept the White Sox. That's why. They just won five in a row. All right, there
yep.
you go.
So they're right there. They don't know what to do. And Chris Young, another former teammate,
Hmm.
is making those decisions. Yeah. And so, but outside of Kirby Yates, Estevez that you pointed out in Anaheim, that's been Gary Apple's guy
Mm.
for a month. He's been targeting him to come and help this bullpen.
Did you see
He's
his
legit.
whip?
Yeah, it's filthy.
0.74 whip on the year.
That's insane.
Nobody allowed on base. I love that. That's what I look at
Yeah,
for relievers, like how stressful are
especially
your innings.
especially with a guy like Diaz at the back end that
Yeah,
that can walk some guys and let some guys on right now. To have a guy just have a lockdown eighth inning, yeah, that's magical.
yeah.
Yeah, but for me, it's Kirby Yates. I think outside of that, I would love a Jesse Winker, Kyle Finnegan.
Well, yeah, you
Those
can
two
talk
guys,
about Nationals pair up trade too. That can
that to
work.
me, that is it makes the most sense. You get Jesse Winker for outfield depth, a lefty bat, and then you have Kyle Finnegan, who's been an absolute lockdown closer for 2 years.
And he's under
Um,
control
and
beyond
yeah,
this year.
is he or is he going to be a free agent?
He's a free agent in 2026. He's ARB
Okay, so you
eligible.
get so you get another year of Finnegan, and he's an older guy for going into free agency, so
Sure,
you
yeah.
know he's legit right now, and he's going to be legit next year. He's established. It isn't a 1 year kind of fluky run where you're going to see like steer questions with Eric Fetty. Eric Fetty went to Korea last year, reinvented himself, came back, and he's been dominant. But is this the guy?
Mm.
It hasn't been sustainable, or he hasn't shown it. It seems like he is. I know for a terrible team, he's been great, but a Finnegan Winker to me, outside of Kirby Yates, Winker Finnegan combination is what I want.
I love that. And if that was the only move they made, I would be a happy camper. That's pretty much all they need. Um, for me, I think Estevez is definitely on my list too, just in terms of like, I don't know, not that I ever think it would happen, but giving Diaz a little bit of competition for the closer role, I think is not necessarily a bad thing. Like I said, the whip is unbelievable. It's one of the best among all relief pitchers. His contract is $6.75 million dollars. For reference. Phil Maton's was $6.5 million dollars. The Mets don't really have that much issue, I think, taking on that level of money for the payroll. For me, a guy that I've looked at a lot as someone that I think would not take a lot to get is Zach Eflin. Zach Eflin, his contract is 2 years and $39 million. And the team that's paying him is the Tampa Bay Rays. They just traded one of their most iconic players because of arbitration, essentially. They didn't want to pay Randy whatever number he was going to get in ARB, which is probably going to be one of the higher numbers on the Rays itself. The Zach Eflin contract is fully backloaded. I think he got paid. I'm going to get the numbers right now. Last year he got 11 million. This year he got 11 million. Next year he's getting 18 million. I think that was done purposefully. I think the Rays kind of always knew this is a guy we're going to trade before that last year kicks in. He's also a guy that has gone 6 innings or more in over half of his starts. They're not dominant starts, but that's exactly what the Mets need right now. They need quality outings, giving the bullpen some sense of relief. And the one resource they have better than most other teams is money. So if you can exchange some kind of deal where you pay down most of the Eflin contract, you get him for next year, and you don't have to give up a ton of prospect capital in return, and then you solve this starting rotation issue, if that was the lone move the Mets made, I would also be a happy camper because I'm starting to believe in this bullpen a little bit. As much as I'd love another arm, he's the guy I'm looking at as the most of like, if the Mets got him, I think it would really change the outlook going forward. Not even necessarily saying he would be a big factor in a playoff run, but you got to get there, and he's a guy that would really help you get there.
Yeah, I really like Eflin
Yeah.
as a target. I think he fits a larger mold with the next year coming in. I think he's a weapon. He's got filthy stuff.
Yeah.
He's always been that target since moving away from Philly. He's been dominant during stretches because he has really good swing and miss type stuff. So I love that. He throws that, his sinker cutter combination is filthy. Um, I still think they need one bullpen arm. So I do think they need, even if they get Eflin, I think they need a bullpen guy to
Yeah.
really sustain this because with the starters that they have, they're going to need a lot of innings. They got a lot of guys back there. And if you can have one more guy kind of fill in that back wherever it goes, because it's fickle.
Hmm.
There's a lot of what have you done for me lately in our bullpen, understandably. And if you can, say Nunez takes a little bit of a hiccup, you could put Maton there, and it'd just be so much better to have one more established guy to fill in. They are missing dearly Brooks Raley.
So bad.
So bad. So like a Tanner Scott would be amazing. Obviously, he's going to take a lot.
There's going to be
He's
some competition for him too. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's a lefty that throws 100. Righties are hitting like
Yeah.
120, and lefties are hitting like 070 off of him
Yeah.
this year.
I mean, he's destroyed the Mets every time he's pitched against them, pretty much.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, he was popping 100 in that series right after the All-Star break.
Yeah.
He's on the move somewhere. But I still feel like their number one target should be a reliever and a starter.
Yeah.
So they need two guys, whether it's a bullpen starter, bullpen outfielder, or one of each. It's wild. It's
Yeah.
wild where they've pushed over these 2 months, but even over these last 2 weeks where they're a half game behind the Atlanta Braves, and
It's unbelievable.
the teams are climbing. And the Phillies look a little bit vulnerable.
Human. Yeah.
You know what I
Definitely.
mean? So.
Yes.
It's crazy to think about where they are now compared to where they were in May and June. It's been a magical run. I would like to see them cash in. You talked
Here's
about throwing strikes. Zach Eflin doesn't walk anyone.
right. That's a big thing
Uh,
for me too.
yeah, that helps him go deeper into games. Yeah, so I like that move.
I mean, let's put it into scope. And this Mets team was going to be like the top supplier of pitching. Were had they been sellers at this year's deadline, like if everyone stayed healthy, like you're talking about, Rayleigh, Smith, Severino, Quintana, all those guys would have been on the market. They're a buyer now, and there's still plenty of pitching to go around. In a month's time, they erased a 10-game gap between them and the Braves. That is the gap right now between them and the Phillies. That's all I'm saying. So I mean, this is a team that I think is looking big picture right now, and also still trying to compete this year. I'm looking at guys in the bullpen that have not gotten used a lot either. Like a lot of the Nationals guys kind of scare me because Davies running those guys out 3 days in a row or whatever. But at the end of the day, it feels like they're a starter and a reliever away from being a legitimate contender to take the National League. And I think you can't ignore that.
So here's the counter. I agree, but here's the counter argument to a bullpen guy. So they are missing Brooks Raley and Drew Smith.
Sean Reed
Uh,
Foley,
but Sean Reed Foley's, I think, close. He's been
I hope
throwing.
so.
He is a one. Like
Yeah.
he's been so good. Um, Trying to think of who else. Reed Garrett is probably on his way back at some
Yeah.
point, and he's not
So,
the eighth inning guy,
right.
but he is nasty and can get outs. So those are the two guys that if they don't make a bullpen move, that if they're close, makes sense because then you can pull out a Danny Young for a Sean Reed Foley, and that creates a lot of depth. And then if you bring in a guy like Reed Garrett at some point, this team becomes a solid bullpen, even without Drew Smith and Brooks Raley. So
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about a bullpen that at full health right now is Diaz, Nunez, Butto, which is a recipe that has worked. We've seen it work. Maton, who's put together two really good weeks and could keep it up. And then you're adding to that Sean Reed Foley, who's got an ERA below 2. Reed Garrett, who, when we've seen him in middle relief, has been absolutely dominant, like out of high
yep.
leverage. And then they have to make a decision on Fujinami, who's been really good in the minor leagues on and off. They have to make a call on him. They can't keep him down there, I think, much longer, I think beyond July. So there's your bullpen potentially. Maybe they don't need to add at all, but I just think adding one high leverage arm to the back end,
To me,
suddenly it's a
Fujinami's out.
strength.
Fujinami's
Yeah.
out. You can't like this is his career. I mean, he can't throw strikes regularly. Um, it's just impossible to sustain that. So he went like, he's a lefty that could throw 100.
Yeah.
I mean, he had 8 walks in July in 4 and 2/3 innings.
Yeah.
You know, that's the volatility in the bullpen is what kills you. Not having a guy. So I say it all the time, but these are your two best abilities in the bullpen: availability and
Mhm.
reliability. You
Yeah.
have to have reliability. And Fujinami just simply, you don't know what you're going to get. Are you going to get dominance or are you going to get a guy that's going to walk 5 in 1/3 of an inning? Like, you can't have that on a team that's competitive. You need an established guy that you know is going to get, like Phil Maton hasn't been at his best right now. Like he hasn't had consistent movement on his pitches, but he's really good and he can work without his best stuff. He doesn't need to be all the way on to get big outs. That's what you need. And when Fujinami's not on, he's as off as it gets, as in he
Yeah.
turns off the strike zone and he's everywhere.
I mean, you can't add anybody that is a walk threat because the Mets already struggle with that enough. I
Yeah.
definitely agree with what you're saying there. Um, I don't know. The underlying note or the overarching note is just I hope we have an emergency pod to do in the next 5 days.
Yeah, same.
That's all.
I'm very excited. We might have to do multiple if they decide that that's, what they're
Please.
doing. First of all, our t-shirt game today is kind of fire.
Got my Senga shirt for the return. What are you rocking right there?
What
Is
do
that
you
John
think? What is
Candy?
this? Do you
That's
know this?
Sandler Candy. Is that David Spade? God, he looks young. Is
Yeah,
that
this is
SNL?
the SNL
Yeah.
Farley Spade and Sandler combo. That's my era.
The goal, everyone's era is the one they grew up with.
Yeah,
Everyone's the best era of SNL is the one I grew up with.
well, yeah. That's what
Yeah.
yours isn't though.
Well, mine's like Will Ferrell,
Oh,
that
that's
crop.
true. You're
Yeah, so
not
mine's
as
the
young
best.
as I.
Yeah,
Yeah, I keep giving you a hard time, but you're getting
yeah,
old.
yeah, exactly. My back hurts these days. No. All right, I think that does it. I mean, we can daydream for hours on end about who we want to
Yeah.
add, but we're gonna find out pretty damn soon, which is really exciting and really nerve-wracking. But all the Mets can do is go out there and just keep beating good teams, and I hope they continue to do it tonight.
And I'm so excited for the Ghost Fork. Like I am
I hope
this
it goes well.
yeah, adding Senga, I'm gonna look for two things today.
Yeah.
Consistent movement on the Ghost Fork
Hmm.
and his velo. If he's 93 and under, we're kind of in trouble here for, every sixth day until he builds up. But if he's throwing 93 to 96, I think that's where he needs to be. We saw him hit 99 a bunch of times last year. So I think That's what I'm looking for. That velo to be there from Senga.
Where I'm at is that I'm excited for him to be back. My brain has still not fully registered him as part of this year, and I think that like I'm gonna stay there until I see what I saw last year because I think it's unfair to expect him to be an ace immediately. But if he is, whoa, that
Look out.
changes everything for this team.
Yeah.
Go Senga, go Mets, beat the Braves, beat the Twins, and add everybody. I think that's all we got.
Yeah. Let's go Mets.
Let's go Mets. We'll see you guys next time. Hopefully, it'll be about the Mets adding someone to this very talented roster.
Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Shea Station, Jerry and Charlie. Thank you all for coming. Hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you next time where we'll be back.
Shea Station.